School choice for parents. It's a big issue right now in Alberta with the NDP attack on homeschooling. And in BC, the NDP for years have attacked the BC Liberals over their stance on public education and condemned government funding of private and faith-based schools in our province. And recently, the province determined it had no choice but to remove the elected Vancouver School Board for failing to balance their budget. If you saw my original report on this decision, you will know the backlash from the BC NDP was ironic, if not hypocritical. Over the weekend at the BC Liberals Convention, I caught up with Education Minister Mike Bernier. We discussed the decision to remove the board and then got into a frank discussion about the value of independent and faith-based schools in our province. Let's take a look. All right, Minister Bernier, thank you so much for taking the time. Let me just get your, just thoughts and, feedback on sort of the decision and the tough decision to dismiss the Vancouver School Board and the situation that they found themselves in by refusing to balance the budget, even though there was this supposed last minute, maybe I'll get you to comment on that, the last minute decision that they sort of reneged and then we weren't really sure where it stood. So maybe you could clarify that for us to start.
No, sure. It's, well, first of all, I mean, it's the law in British Columbia. Obviously, school districts need to submit a balanced budget by June 30th of every year. 59 of 60 school districts did just that. Vancouver refused to do that. And they publicly said they refused to do that for political reasons, to try to go against government. That's not something, obviously, that's tolerable. But I didn't want to make a knee-jerk reaction and dismiss the board right away. We actually put in an audit team and a special advisor to look at the books who actually came back with some great recommendations, but most importantly came back with the comments of, I don't see a path forward with this present board. There seems to be too many political games being played and not good decisions for students. So even though the day that the board was dismissed and an official trustee was put in, they did say that they were going to finally pass a balanced budget, albeit a couple of months late. It just showed me that it was about games, because 3 days earlier, they said they had a $21 million deficit. In 3 days, they all of a sudden had a surplus and we're going to pass the budget. So I think the important part is we've got to think about kids here and move forward, and I have full confidence the official trustee will be focused on students.
Shifting gears a little bit, and I know this topic isn't always one, especially the opposition doesn't like you talking about it because they like to use it as a wedge issue. But I grew up, I went to a private school, I went to an independent school. Something I think our viewers appreciate just in general is the freedom of choosing. And maybe if you could just outline why that's important and why this BC Liberal government is in favor of independent schools and a strong independent school and religious school system here in the province alongside our public system.
Well, first of all, I find it unfortunate that the NDP would even fathom making this an election issue. When you really look at it, this is about choice. This is about making sure that not only do students have the best education possible, whether it's public or independent, but that parents have a choice. Most of our independent schools are actually faith-based schools. A faith that is not actually taught in the public schools. So if a parent wants that as part of the education for their child, they should be allowed to have that. I think what's really important to stress too is on the independent school side, the policy has not changed. The funding formula has not changed. It's been there for decades. So although the opposition will turn around and hint that they might want to take funding away from independent schools, obviously we're completely against that. We're in favor of making sure that families have choice. I think it's also important to stress the amount of money that we put into the public school system. $5.2 billion is going into the public education system, and it's only a minuscule amount that goes into the independent school system. On top of that, independent schools have to raise their own money for capital for whatever they would like in the schools. If they want to seismically upgrade the school or do anything, they have to raise that themselves. No tax dollars go into that. And I think that's an important one to stress.
I think sometimes the NDP forget that private school parents are taxpayers too, and their tax money still goes to pay for everything, the same things that public school parents do as well. One last question, and I think that this is something that I've heard in my, talking to people, is that there is a frustration in the post-secondary world where
there's a feeling that maybe too many post-secondary positions are being offered to international students because for the universities, they're able to charge more tuition. How is your government going to continue to address that and make sure that local students still get an opportunity to go to some of our very fine post-secondary institutions here in British Columbia?
Sure. Well, we have a world-class post-secondary education here in British Columbia, no different than our K-12, and we do have a strong international program, and I think that's actually something to be proud of. When you look at the diversity that we have here in British Columbia, the people who choose to come to British Columbia for the opportunities, the families that want to send their children here, I think we should be proud and actually be celebrating that. That diversity is what makes British Columbia. When you look at our post-secondary, we continue to look at the opportunities working with the post-secondary institutions because we have amazing job opportunities here. Our students want to be ready and trained and prepared for those, and it's about making sure our British Columbians are first in line for those jobs.
What did you think about that? I was a bit disappointed he wasn't able to give me a completely straight answer about concerns that our universities prefer international students because their tuition is more expensive and more profitable for universities like UBC and SFU. But at the same time, I absolutely love how Bernier unabashedly defends independent and faith-based schools. This is just one example of how the BC Liberals don't allow themselves to go all wacky, new age regressive with education policy the way we've seen in Ontario and now Alberta. Of course, the matter around the now dismissed Vancouver School Board is not over. If you recall, we are in the process of filing Freedom of Information requests surrounding the toxic work environment at the board prior to dismissal. I will update you on that as we make progress getting a proper price after the school board attempted to throw a $20,000 price tag at us. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you keep it locked on our YouTube channel so you never miss an update. And if you really like what you saw, well, click up here and chip in $8 a month for premium content.